September 15, 1940. RAF bomber. Mission over Antwerp, Belgium. Routine operation. Nothing special. Except one crew member was 18 years old. Not the pilot, not the navigator. The wireless operator, Sergeant John Hanna, 18. Plane took a direct hit. Ammunition started exploding inside the aircraft. Fire everywhere. Two crew members looked at the flames, looked at their parachutes, and jumped. Can't blame them. Honestly, the plane was on fire. Ammunition was going off. Jumping made complete sense, but John Hanna didn't jump. He stayed. 2 fire extinguishers, used both. Fire kept burning. Extinguishers empty. So John grabbed his logbook, started beating the flames with it. Logbook caught fire, so John used his bare hands. Burns on his face, burns on his hands. He kept going until the fire was out, until the plane could limp home, until the crew survived. Victoria Cross, youngest RAF recipient ever, age 18. This is John Hanna, and his story is one of the most incredible things I've come across doing this channel. Let me tell you everything. Okay, so let me start with some context, because I think it matters. 1940, Battle of Britain. Everyone knows the fighter pilots, the Spitfires, the Hurricanes, Churchill's "the few" speech. That's the famous part. But there was another war happening at the same time. At night, in heavy bombers, flying over occupied Europe, dropping bombs on German supply lines, ports, factories. Bomber Command. Less glamorous, less famous, way more dangerous than most people realize. Hampton bombers, Wellington bombers, Whitley bombers, slow, heavy, vulnerable, flying in the dark over enemy territory, flak guns below, night fighters above. Every mission was a gamble. John Hanna flew Hamptons, 83 Squadron RAF, and on the night of September 15, 1940, his gamble almost didn't pay off. Born November 27, 1921, Motherwell, Scotland. Working class family, normal upbringing, normal kid doing normal things. Then 1939 happened. War started. John was 17. Too young to vote, too young for most things, but old enough to join the RAF. And that's exactly what he did. By 1940, he was 18 and flying combat missions. Wireless operator / air gunner on Hampton bombers. Responsible for communications. Responsible for defense. Lowest rank on the crew. Youngest guy on the plane. Now here's something I want you to think about, because it changes how you see this story. John wasn't some grizzled veteran who'd seen everything. He wasn't a hardened warrior with years of experience. He was a teenager, fresh out of training, still figuring out who he was, on a bomber over Nazi-occupied Europe. Think about the people you knew at 18. Think about yourself at 18. Now imagine being on a burning plane over Belgium. Different world, right? Real quick, let me tell you about the Hampton, because it matters for the story. The Handley Page Hampton. Medium bomber, twin engine. Crew of 4, pilot, navigator / bomb aimer, wireless operator, rear gunner. Tight, cramped, not a lot of room to move around. Here's the important part. The Hampton had a specific weakness: fire. The aircraft carried fuel, ammunition, bombs. If something hit the plane and started a fire, you had very little time to deal with it. Very little. And on September 15, 1940, German anti-aircraft fire over Antwerp found John Hanna's plane. Mission: bomb German barges at Antwerp harbor. The Germans were massing invasion barges in Belgian ports, preparing for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain. Destroying those barges mattered a lot. John's Hampton flew low over the target, dropped the bombs, turned to head home. Then everything went wrong. Direct hit from flak, one shell, maybe more, hit the bomb bay area. What happened next happened fast. Ammunition inside the aircraft started cooking off, exploding from the heat. Fire spread inside the plane. 2 crew members, the observer and the second pilot, made a decision. They bailed out, parachuted into occupied Belgium, and look, I want to be clear about something. That was a rational choice. The plane was on fire. Ammunition was literally exploding around them. Getting out made sense, but Pilot Flying Officer Connor was still at the controls. He had to be. Someone had to fly the plane, and Navigator Sergeant James was still there too. They couldn't just leave, which meant John Hannah couldn't leave either. Not because someone ordered him to stay, not because he was trapped, because if he left, the pilot and navigator died. It was that simple. So John stayed, 18 years old, surrounded by fire. Stayed. Here's where it gets, honestly, kind of hard to process, because what John did next, I don't really know how you put it into words. He grabbed the first fire extinguisher, aimed it at the flames, used the whole thing, fire kept going, grabbed the second extinguisher, used that one too, fire kept going. Both extinguishers empty, fire still burning, ammunition still going off around him, heat intense, smoke filling the aircraft. So what do you do? Seriously, what do you do at that point? You've used everything you have. The logical thing, the human thing, is to accept it. Jump. Survive. Let the plane go. John didn't do that. He grabbed his logbook, started beating the flames with it. The logbook is basically a notebook. Not exactly firefighting equipment, but John was hitting the flames with it, trying to smother them, beat them out. Logbook caught fire, so John used his hands, his bare hands, beating flames, trying to smother a fire that had already burned through metal. And he was getting burned, face, hands, not small burns, serious burns. But he kept going, because the fire was getting smaller, because it was actually working, because his pilot and navigator were still alive and he was going to keep it that way. Eventually, the fire went out, just like that. After all of that, the plane was still flying, damaged, barely holding together, but flying. Flying Officer Connor brought it home. Emergency landing back in England. Crew survived because John Hannah refused to stop. John's injuries were serious, burns to his face and hands. He was hospitalized. But here's the thing about John Hannah. He didn't make a big deal out of it. Classic for that generation. Classic for that kind of character. When he was recommended for the Victoria Cross, he apparently seemed almost embarrassed by the whole thing. I just did what needed doing. But what needed doing was fighting a plane fire with bare hands. At 18 years old, Victoria Cross presented by King George VI, youngest RAF recipient ever at that time. A record that held for the entire war. His squadron, his crew, his RAF colleagues. They all knew what he'd done. They knew what it cost him. Bare hands, burning metal. For his crew, I need to talk about what happened after, because it's important and honestly, it's heartbreaking. John survived the fire, recovered from his burns, kept serving. But the damage was done, not just the burns, the whole thing, the stress, the smoke, the injuries. It all took a toll. After the war, John Hannah developed tuberculosis, and on June 7, 1947, John Hannah died, age 25. Let that sink in for a second. Survived a burning plane at 18, survived the entire war, died at 25. TB was still a serious illness in 1947. Medicine wasn't what it is today. And his lungs, after everything they'd been through, the smoke, the burns, the stress of combat missions, they just couldn't fight it off. He never got to grow up, never got to see what his life could have been, never got to be old. Victoria Cross at 18, dead at 25, that's the part that stays with me. You know what I keep coming back to with John Hannah's story? The choice. Two crew members faced the exact same situation, same fire, same danger, same choice. They chose one thing. John chose something else. And look, I'm not saying they were cowards, they weren't. Bailing out of a burning plane is what you're supposed to do. It's literally in the training. But John looked at the same situation and thought about his pilot and his navigator and the fact that they couldn't leave, and he chose to stay. He was 18 years old, making a split-second decision that most grown adults would never make. There's something about that age thing that just gets to me. I can't fully explain it. But it makes the whole thing more remarkable somehow, not less. Because at 18, you're still figuring things out, still becoming who you're going to be. John Hannah figured it out pretty fast. He was the kind of person who stays when everyone else is leaving. When leaving is the rational thing, when staying is the harder choice. He was that person at 18. Imagine who he could have been at 40. We never got to find out. And yeah, he was Scottish. You've probably noticed by now we do a lot of Scottish heroes on this channel. Tommy McPherson, Lorne Campbell, James Stokes, Jock Campbell, Robert Kane, now John Hannah. And every time I think, okay, after this one we'll do someone from somewhere else. And then the next story turns out to be Scottish again. But here's the thing, I'm not going to apologize for it. Because these stories are real. The courage was real. The Scottish soldiers, sailors, and airmen of World War II were genuinely extraordinary. John Hannah fits that tradition. Working-class kid from Motherwell, 18 years old, bare hands on a burning plane. That's the tradition. Doing the impossible. And then acting like it was just what needed to be done. So what do you take from John Hannah's story? A few things. First, age doesn't determine courage. John was 18, youngest RAFVC ever. He wasn't brave because he was experienced. He wasn't brave because he'd been through it before. He was brave because that's just who he was. Age doesn't give you that. Character does. Second, the choice to stay. Everyone on that plane faced the same situation, same fire, same danger. Two people chose one thing. John chose another. Neither choice makes you a bad person, but one choice made him a hero. Third, heroism has a cost. John didn't walk away clean from this. Serious burns, long-term health damage, died at 25. Acknowledging that cost is how you actually honor someone. Not just the glory part, the price they paid. Fourth, Bomber Command deserves more credit. Everyone knows the Spitfire pilots, the Battle of Britain fighter aces. Fewer people know John Hannah. Bomber Command, night missions, less glamorous, but just as vital, just as dangerous, just as brave. There are thousands of John Hannahs out there, people who did extraordinary things that history kind of forgot about. That's exactly why this channel exists. September 15th, 1940. A Hampton bomber over Antwerp, direct hit. Fire everywhere. Two men jumped. One stayed. He was 18 years old, burns on his face and hands, used every extinguisher he had. Then his logbook, then his bare hands. He saved his pilot, he saved his navigator, he saved the plane. Victoria Cross, youngest RAF recipient ever, presented by the King himself, died 1947, age 25. John Hannah never got to be old, never got to tell his grandkids this story, never got to see what he could have become. But his crew got to go home, and that was the whole point. That was always the point. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe. We find these stories every single day, and drop a comment. What part of John Hannah's story hit you the hardest? The age? The bare hands? The fact that he died at 25? I genuinely want to know, because these stories deserve to be remembered. John Hannah deserves to be remembered. Youngest RAF Victoria Cross, 18 years old, bare hands on a burning plane. Some people find courage when they need it. John Hannah found it at 18, and it cost him everything.